the outlier. So the outlier or outliers is a value that lies outside, is much smaller or larger than, most of the other values in the set of data. And they give you an example. That's a definition I pulled that we can have in our word wall or in your vocabulary notes. But if we look at the dot plot below, you can kind of see in this section most of our data is concentrated in this section right here. 6 through 10 is where we have most of our data. But the outlier, when we identify the outlier, that's going to be the value that seems to be outside of or has a strong variance from the rest of it. So if you look over here at this 1, 3, this seems to be kind of on its own away from the cluster of information that you see with the green X's. So the outlier in this particular dot plot is going to be the 3 right over here. So when you look for the outlier, you're looking for the information that is away from where you have the concentration or the cluster of most of your data. It can be smaller than or it could be greater than. Let's try a couple of practices here. Got 2 of these up. On number 1, that number line at the bottom goes from 11 to 25. And look at where most of the information is clustered, and then look and see if there's a value that seems to be an outlier that's kind of outside of the rest of the information. What we're looking at here is most of the concentrated information is right there between 12 and 14, and you've got this one value off to the side over here that's 24. So the outlier for that question 1 right there would be 24 to answer that accurately. Let's look at the second one. Give you guys a second to think about that. You can pause it if you want for a second or two, and then we'll talk about it. But see if you can identify the outlier in that one. Go for it. Okay, so most of the information, again, is clustered in this section here. It looks like from we got 15 all the way up to about 35 is where we have our cluster of information. But we have these values off over here by themselves. It looks like one at about 75 and another one at 85. So the outliers in this circumstance right over here, there's actually 2 of them. We'd have more than one because there are 2 values that seem to be outside of the cluster or where our main information seems to be. So 75 and 85 would be the outliers in this case. So yes, you can have more than one outlier, but we're just looking for the information that is outside of the main cluster, the main group of information on our data. You can have outliers in bar graphs. You can see them in frequency tables. You'll see them a lot in the dot plots, but they're not specific to just dot plots. So make sure that you can recognize them in other data information as well.